Hey, everybody, welcome to BDE. And this week only, Chuck Yates needs a job. I'm going to push this podcast out on both channels. And believe it or not, I mean, all the time we've been doing this, I still bump into people that they're like, oh, you do BDE too? Or they go, oh, you have another one besides BDE? So just to explain.
What does that say?
I'm a shitty marketer. I'm lazy. So anyway, those of you who are fans of Big Digital Energy with me, Colin, Kirk, and Mark, I also do another podcast called Chuck Yates Needs a Job, and it is generally has a guest on it. Some investigative reporting every once in a while. Usually has a guest. It's usually long format, think kind of Rogan style with a guest. About 75-80% of the time I'm doing energy. The rest is kind of whatever pops up. Did a Kennedy assassination podcast one time, had a religious studies professor on. We talked about the supernatural and the occult. And for fans of Chuck Yates Needs a Job, me, Mark, usually Kirk, usually Colin, talk about the weekly summary of the energy business. And we say it's for people that think Jim Cramer sucks. So
Didn't Kirk have the cast party for his new golf influencers reality show?
I think they're filming this week, and I don't know when the party is, but I noticed we didn't get invited.
I think it was Sunday night.
Was it Sunday night?
Let's talk about parties and invites before we get into Meteor Matters. There was a
great tweet.
There was a great tweet.
It was an epic tweet. So
happy birthday.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you.
And happy birthday, Kirk.
So last week, Colin tweeted out, Nimble Fatty just told me that Jules throwing him a birthday party on Saturday. Dude leads a different life than me. And she did. My dear friend Jewel, we went to, Laura and I went to Telluride, went to the Blues and Brews Festival, saw Gary Clark Jr. on Friday night. Anyway, it was great. And we had a dinner party on a Saturday night. And that Jewel hosted, and anyway, she brought violence that night. She took Colin's tweet and retweeted it, saying, "If only you had smoked the pound, you might have been invited." So it's just great.
That may be the tipping point. I thought his follow up the next morning was cool. That he was in a dream state about Jewel tweeting something about him. So you saw Gary Clark.
Saw Gary Clark Jr. Guy, he's so good.
He's so cool. And
yeah.
He did it's been, I think 2 or 3 months ago, he did a podcast with Rogan, and just what a great story. And just
because he's an Austin guy, right?
Yeah, he's an Austin guy.
Yeah.
If you've never seen him or heard him, he's absolutely worth listening to.
Yeah. So he got on the radar screen for me when the Foo Fighters Sonic Highways thing. And you know how they went to 8 different cities, recorded a song in each city, and made the HBO series about it. He played with them when they did Austin. And that's kind of where he popped up. And I think on that tour, he opened up for him because I saw that tour 3 times, I think, and saw Gary Clark Jr. 3 times. He's great.
Your boy Grohl was a bit in the news here over the past few weeks.
I know.
You're a TMZ guy. Why don't you recap us on that?
Well, Dave Grohl made an announcement on social media that he has fathered a child, a daughter, outside of his marriage, and he's going to be a really good father, and he's going to beg his wife and his existing daughters for forgiveness.
Rockstar behavior.
Supposedly not uncommon for Mr. Grohl. Also cost him his first marriage as well. So
I'm surprised we didn't see you on TMZ this week.
They haven't called recently. It's been a year and a half since they had me on. I don't know if I messed up saying something, but
I don't know if that's an ABC show, but we just got ABC back on, and all of its affiliates back on DirecTV. They were in one of those
so disputes now because
went dark right at the start of college football season.
Yeah, I was actually gonna figure out how to get rid of DirecTV, and I've literally
Fubo.
I've literally had it since the day it came out.
Yeah, I've had it for over 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And always loved it, but not having ESPN, just kind of, if you don't have live sports, that's all TV's left for.
So how was Jewel?
She was good. She's been out on tour with Melissa Etheridge, and she's got a cool art project that she's working on. And I don't know if we're allowed to talk about that, so I'll keep the details to myself. She has teased
about it on social media.
Okay.
I'm very intrigued by what's going on.
Yeah,
there.
No, it's
multifaceted, multi-talented, multi-genre.
And what was really cool when we were there Saturday morning, we had a video conference call with the International Space Station. It was so cool because one of the astronauts up there had taken Jewel's meditation class and kind of become friends with Jewel and said, "Hey, would you like to talk to the space station? I bet your son would love for me to show around." And so anyway, Jewel's like, "Come in here." And we sat in front of a computer screen. It was all I could do to not ask the question, "How do you poop?" I really was fascinated by that, but I was on my best behavior.
Next time you see her, tell her you have a friend that spent a significant amount of time in Homer, Alaska.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
I've been. I went up there and checked out.
See a lot of eagles around Homer.
Yeah.
Especially.
Yeah. No, and
it's pretty cool.
Well, it was fascinating too, because when we got there, her brothers were playing in a bar. And so anyway, maybe I had too much vodka that night.
No.
Walked out at 2 a.m. and it was still sunlight. And I swore off vodka for a year. I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. But yeah, it's gorgeous.
I empathize.
It's gorgeous up there. So
anyway.
All right. What's up in the news?
Well, as we have the past couple of weeks, just because of the volatility in crude and related equities markets, I thought it would be good to revisit one more time. Because
basically I said last week that crude was fairly priced and that it was headed down. So what's happened over the last week?
This is more about, I think, good insight into what's going on by someone who spends a lot of time commenting and following commenting on and following crude markets, and that's Rory Johnston.
Yeah,
he does the Crude Chronicles on Substack. So if you're not aware of his work, highly recommend it. But we're going to attach a couple of tweets from the last few days where, basically reinforcing the position that we've talked about at a high level, which is fundamentals don't matter here. We're going through a reset, and if you look at what happened several days ago when crude TI dropped below 66, you've got competing record levels of speculative short position in the paper market. So we always have these kind of bounce moments. Now crude's trading north of 71. It's up about 8%. Equities, as defined by the XOP ETF, are up 6%. Some of the stocks in that index on the E&P side had reached their contemporary lows from 3 years ago. So fundamentals don't matter until they matter. And we're going through kind of the natural catharsis here as it relates to the spec positioning in the contracts. And so also what's driving the bus is what we're anticipating here in just over 3.5 hours.
Yeah, we're at 10.
Is the Fed decision.
Yeah. And the baseline's what, 25 basis points, but there's speculation it could go to 50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I haven't paid close attention to the other economic data points. It seems like we're seeing things like confidence come in marginally stronger. China's still a demand worry, et cetera. But
inflation's down to 2.5%. Unemployment's up to 4%. So there's at least some softening.
Crude's off a little bit this morning. So it'll be interesting to watch it after 2 o'clock. Is it 2 o'clock Eastern?
2 o'clock Eastern.
2 o'clock Eastern.
Yeah. So
hopefully we won't have to talk about crude next week.
Yeah. The interesting thing, so I'm going to say it was like 4 or 5 months ago, but it was probably a year, just kind of how the mind works, that I had Rory on the podcast. And one of the things he said that was pretty interesting is we keep talking about returning to pre-COVID. And he kept saying, I'm not sure that's the right thing to do because a lot has changed because of COVID, different working situations. And so figuring out what, quote unquote, the new normal is, he says, it's actually going to take us a while. So I've seen him echo that theme in tweets kind of over the last, year or so, just like, just because airline travel is up after COVID doesn't mean we go back to 2019. We're just going to have to sort through and slog through and figure out.
Right. Is 2019 the proper baseline?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
although I did see a few days ago that Amazon has issued a return to work 5 days a week directive.
Yeah. I've heard that actually what they're doing with that is they're hoping that the people that don't want to come back from work at home quit. And this is the way they kind of clear out some employees. And it's likely those are the employees they don't want to have. So
organic attrition, and then we've got AI and robots.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it'll be interesting to see. So this was crazy. Yesterday, I went to lunch with some guys that I'd met in Australia when I was over there this summer. Really good dudes. They had come to the Energy Club of the Northern Territory, the kind of party that they had where I spoke, and then Brian Sheffield spoke. I'd met the guys there, and they said, hey, we're coming over to Houston for this GasTech conference. And I don't know, when the guy emailed me like a month ago, I don't know that I'd ever heard of GasTech. And so it's crazy. You look it up, there's supposedly 50,000 people running around George R. Brown, 5,000 delegates. Every CEO of any gas-related company is in town at the meeting. This is like a really big deal, and I don't know anything about it.
And Josh Young was doing Twitter play-by-play yesterday.
He did.
Yeah, he went to some scientific demonstration on LNG.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
Like you can literally put water on top of LNG and drink the water because they won't mix. Now, I'm not sure I'm going to do that, but
so I agree with you. GasTech seems to have flown under the radar, which is a bit surprising, particularly in Houston. I've never been. I was peripherally aware of it, but this one feels like kind of CERAWeek dynamic.
Yeah,
the global conference time, the marquee event in Houston is always in the spring, and it's always CERAWeek, where you see a lot of international participation and attendance and speaking. This one, I think I looked on Reuters Energy News yesterday. The headlines had 4 or 5 of the top headlines were things related to panel discussions and what CEOs were saying, particularly about LNG.
Yeah, particularly the ban. I saw a couple of them.
Yeah, the pause, the Biden pause.
The Biden pause. So,
and so what I think is evident here, and just plowing through some of that reporting, is we're, from an executive standpoint, the pro LNG constituency is playing offense here a little bit more. And that may just be a function of just what we've seen in a bit of a shift in the overall kind of oil and gas battle with renewables and the climate opposition. Well, one thing that was notable, and one thing that Mike Wirth referenced and talked about, the Biden pause. Ryan Lance was also one of the main speakers as well. ConocoPhillips chairman and CEO, is I viewed as much more explicit reference to what's happening and going to happen with power and AI and gas's role in that. So, it's showing up as a hammer in this debate, and it's one data point, meaning GasTech, but I do think there's there's a much higher profile messaging out there around what's going on both domestically and then thinking about internationally with natural gas.
Well, I sent out a tweet last week, and Paul Clark, I don't know if you follow Paul on, and I don't know that I've ever met Paul in my life, not even sure his background, but we got going, and I hope he's okay with me saying this. I'm sure he will be. We got going in direct messages about it. And my tweet was basically, natural gas guys are just going to miss out if they're not talking directly to the tech companies with, hey guys, here are your electrons. And Paul came back and was saying things like, it's really hard to generate electricity. Companies can't do it. And my response back was, well, they have to. It's right. Just, and whether that's partnering with power generation companies, the word on the street is a couple of the large natural gas guys, Hillcorp being one of them, are starting to hire those old IPP guys, the independent power producing guys, to start figuring this out. All right, how do we sell electrons? Because I really do think, we just keep seeing headlines every day of, and I think the headline last week was it which tech company got 3 nukes permitted? I forget. Oracle. Yeah. So Oracle.
Yeah, and the devil in the details there is no location specified, and that there's a whole set of local and state hurdles and community hurdles that they're going to have to clear, which then points back to, there's always a landmine out there beyond the fundamental permit approval that deals with the messy issues that, we've talked about in the context of the Manchin-Barrasso Energy Permitting Reform Act. We've got to get these roadblocks out of the way. Otherwise we're looking at, and I think Dan tweeted in response to something that you talked about, 8 years, do they have the time? Are they going to miss the bus? Well, if you can get a gigawatt, I don't care if it's a collection of small modular reactors or a utility scale facility, if you can get one done in 8 years, that's going to be an all-time record in the U.S.
Although I still, and I don't have any evidence of this, so this may just be my tinfoil hat. We keep looking at permitting and building and all this through the lens of we're energy companies. And I don't need to remind the audience that people hate us, and they don't want us permitting this type stuff, and they fight against us. I don't know if big tech is going to have those issues. One, big tech can walk into Washington and kind of give them whatever they want and, in effect, get whatever they want. Number two, say what you want about Silicon Valley. They have money to throw at stuff, and they usually do things really quickly. So,
and there's more political affinity, which is really
that's
connected
the guts
to all that, or that's the result of all that.
That's the guts of it. So I think when you start looking at timetables and permitting and all that, you have to say, what if the favorite son walks in and not the bastard child? Walks in to see how. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But I really do think if you're in the natural gas business, you need to figure out how to sell electrons, and you need to go straight talk to Silicon Valley. You need to sit down with Microsoft, Oracle, et cetera, and say, guys, we have this solution today. It's cheap. We've got enough natural gas in the United States. It's going to be cheap for a long time. I mean, we all know how the crack dealer works, right? He gives the crack away for free, gets you hooked, and then you're there forever. That's what the natural gas guys need to be doing. And they all just seem to think that, well, the utilities are going to supply the power and they're going to need more natural gas stuff. I mean, Dominion's already telling data centers no, and that's going to happen elsewhere.
Yeah. And we talked about what's going on in Pennsylvania about the tug of war between what's on grid and off grid related to the nuclear facility that Amazon is partnering with in its data center there that they recently purchased. So being able to, to build out independently is, I think, going to be part and parcel. In other words, am I exposing the grid ratepayers? I never call them customers. The grid ratepayers, particularly the residential, just the average citizen. What kind of vulnerability does this pose if we've got a hybrid where there's some grid and some off grid?
Yeah. One other thing that's sort of related to this is Tesla in their Q2 release, and I don't know if it's press conference or just in a release, or whether Musk was tweeting about it, but basically I think it was 9.4 gigawatts per hour or whatever of battery storage that they sold, which was up 2x from the first quarter. And that's the home stuff and the utility scale stuff. I forget what they call it, like mega power or something. But anyway, I mean, I think we in Houston, everybody, mega power or something.
Be careful.
Mega power, whatever it is. But I mean, I got to go look at getting batteries or a generator or something.
Somebody in your family has one.
I know. Dad's very
back during Uri, you were the beneficiary.
I was very
Charles's forward thinking. Exactly. The Powerwall, I remember.
Exactly. My inheritance.
There is, I think, one related story. I think you sent it around in the group thread, but it was out last week that chip startup or AI startup Groq, Groq, has partnered with Aramco to build a giant data center in Saudi. And I think that is conceptually a model of what we ought to be doing in the U.S.
Right.
Is going straight to the partnership whereby, this is, I would assume, very heavily oriented toward commercialization and capturing value out of the kingdom's vast gas reserves, which have not been exploited and developed at the same level and rate as we've seen over the last 75 years on crude oil. In fact, it's well known that during peak summer periods that the Saudis burn crude for power generation. They're looking to mitigate that. That's not related to this, but it is an example of exploiting the opportunity that's presented by AI and data centers. And I don't think we're going to have the political inertia that we've got around this issue as it relates to direct generation of gas, generating power for these increasingly large data centers.
Yeah, no, but the bottom line is tech knows they need power and they're going to choose. And so if you're a natty guy, go talk to the end user. So what else do we have on Run a Show?
We've got, this was out last week. We've got BP looking to sell or announcing a sale of its onshore U.S. wind business, which currently constitutes 10 projects at about 1.3 gigawatts combined, citing the same, factors, inflation, supply chain, materials inflation, the like. But the official,
when you've lost BP,
well, the official comment was misalignment of business with future growth strategies. But they made it clear, and we've attached a piece from Zach's, that featuring the pivot, we're more aligned with taking on full ownership of a European solar company called Lightsource. So I don't know what their interest is in Lightsource, but they are pivoting from U.S. onshore wind to European solar.
All right.
Which is, after taking
out of the frying pan into the fire.
Well, after taking massive impairments on things like UK offshore wind,
right?
Leasehold that I think to the tune of $600 million. I think moves like this are necessary, but trying to thread the needle from a perception standpoint is problematic for a company that's lagged its peers, primarily because it has, it was a bit ready, fire, aim on shifting the portfolio and capital allocation a few years ago to go hard after things that ultimately ended up biting them, and certainly has contributed heavily to their discounted valuation, the underperformance of the stock.
Well, and I wonder, does this also, you always assume that who's ever selling you something knows way more about the asset than you do, right? I mean, that's due diligence. But I wonder if it also says future CapEx, blade replacements, et cetera, are going to be more costly than even accepted by the market right now, recognizing increased prices, et cetera.
It's the old, these assets are better in someone else's hands.
Yeah.
That was part of the commentary. So, anything happened last weekend besides your birthday?
Besides my birthday. This is like crazy in that we've had we had the second assassination attempt on Trump. Supposedly this morning, there's a Long Island rally tonight for Donald Trump, and they just stopped a car that had explosives in it. I mean,
was it a box of pagers?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Unreal.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how I feel about that. Just because of the indiscriminate nature. I mean, a kid could have had the pager, so I worry about that. But just, I mean, if you can take the morality out of it and just the ability to actually think that up, do that, and execute is just the stuff of like a movie script.
You'll never know how they do it.
Yeah. No, it was.
But back to
the Trump Chronicles.
Yeah, I found it interesting that the kind of hyper politics, the personal aspect of this, the insults and the politics of personal destruction really didn't take much of a pause. And I would say that's true on both sides. It's kind of reacting, and making sure, and may have something to do with the fact that we're approaching the end of the runway as it relates to the election. And so not a day to lose. But it's things like, I think a general theme on the Harris side is in the media is Trump brought it on himself. It's really his rhetoric that has motivated this type of kooky behavior.
His words caused this, not mine. Yeah.
But then with every opportunity to be magnanimous, on the heels of Taylor Swift's endorsement of Kamala Harris, we get this all caps tweet, or I don't know if it's on Truth or screenshotted and repeated on Twitter, but in all caps, I hate Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
I could see either not commenting or, having admiration for someone who's built an incredible franchise. I don't pay much attention to what high profile people who aren't informed on the issues, or when they say things, they kind of show themselves. But what's the, what is the opportunity there to maybe rhetorically be a bit more considerate? Does that make sense?
Well,
I mean, if you've got that generation or that fan base, which is massive in any part of the undecided camp, why not or even peripherally to that, you don't, I think her most staunch supporters are probably going to fall in line and vote her endorsement and won't think about it any deeper than that. And that's fine. But
well, it's the whole thing. He can't help himself. The data is actually showing that the endorsement helped him more than it helped Harris. The thing I come back to with Trump is I saw him on The View, and I don't know what year, but let's call it 13 or 14. It was before he announced that he was running for president. He came on. Barbara Walters introduced him as my very good friend, Donald Trump. He said all the same policy things he's saying today, but he was flirting with the women, and they just loved him. And it's like, if he could find it in his self to give us 45 days of charming, magnanimous Trump, I think he'd win 60-40. I really do. I mean, it's like, and I get it. I mean, he, in fairness to him, I mean, they took $500 million because a judge said that Mar-a-Lago is worth $18 million. I mean, gosh, everybody in the planet would buy that for $18 million, so I get that he's been beat up, and I mean, he's had people shoot at him and the like, but it's just like, if he could just be magnanimous for 45 days, he'd win going away.
I did see him talking about, I don't forget where he was last night, but he was talking, I think it was in Flint, Michigan. He took a moment to acknowledge that both President Biden and Vice President Harris had called him. And it was just a very, very nice, very, very nice. So, back to the campaign trail immediately. I just, it's just become so bizarre, and I'm not going to say that we've gotten past the most bizarre. Hopefully there's nothing more like what you just alluded to with the Cardinera rally with explosives type of behavior. But I guess cynically, nothing would surprise me.
Yeah, it was shocking to find out this weekend that there's a different standard of care for a candidate versus the existing president of the United States. I mean,
I think that's,
and I don't know if that was just something that was said in the moment to kind of cover up for the fact that maybe the Secret Service hadn't done its job properly. But
I've been around two situations where there have been events. One was a wedding at the Houstonian when HW was still president, and he and Barbara decided to have dinner, and it was a nightmare, both to get in and out and even just move around the hotel. And then with a former president, when we had 43 as a keynote speaker, and I got a little bit inside all that because I moderated the discussion back in 2017. It struck me, comparing and contrasting those two experiences with being close to the Secret Service advanced team, all of that. It was a very different intensity, if that makes sense.
So the former president, it was less intense.
Yeah, he's
got it. Okay.
And I don't know what his day-to-day is like, but around quasi-public events like that, I mean, they were present, and there's probably a lot of stuff that I didn't see. I just think that what I experienced, and it was many years before that experience with 43, for a sitting president, there's naturally a lot more.
You just think it should be threat level driven,
Right.
And I mean, the fact he was already shot at once, I mean, and Iran's out there saying that they're trying to execute him because of the terrorists he took out. I mean, you would think they'd have their A game on, because you would think a current president would have a higher threat level than a former president. But yeah, it just, the one thing, and I hate to be this cynical and all, but I mean, there's some evidence for this. I mean, Biden did not give Secret Service protection to RFK Jr. And that to me is just, given what his family's gone through. You don't even have to like the Kennedys, but given what they've gone through, I mean, that guy should be protected. They gave it to him when Trump got shot, and when he dropped out of the race, they've taken it away.
Can we attribute that to incompetence?
I guess we have to. But
as you said, in the last time we discussed it, it's getting harder to do.
Yeah, it just really is. So
I'm going to throw you a dealer's choice.
All right.
What's going on with the Diddy situation? What's your take?
That's so creepy. I mean, it's just.
You heard the city of New York ask for their key back.
Did they?
Yeah.
Nice. But I mean, that's just so creepy. I mean, what is it about?
You're further inside that world, not the creepy part.
Yeah, I was about to say thanks, dude. But
you photobomb plenty of.
Yeah, it's just so weird that. I mean, and I think it comes down to, powerful person. You can kind of do whatever you want, but I mean, filming all of it, using it to extort people, that's crazy. I don't know. I don't even know what to say about it.
I had heard that he's incarcerated at the same facility in New York as where Epstein was held.
Let's have the cameras rolling this time. So
I predict that you'll make a TMZ experience soon.
There we go. Perfect.
And TMZ, if you watch, which I'm sure they do.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they're watching BD every week.
Chuck's got time on his calendar this week.
Got a little availability. Happy to. I still want, one of the things I need to do is revamp. Chuck Yates needs a job somehow, and I was wondering, do I travel kind of like Anthony Bourdain did, go out to the field, stuff like that? That'd be fun. It'd be a lot of work on Jacob though to edit it. But one of the ideas too would be TMZ energy. Let's go. When somebody's walking out of the Petroleum Club, we've got, Doug Brooks walking out, Doug, what's the latest on this? I think that would be fun for a while. We ought to at least do one episode of that where famous people in the energy business catch them on camera while they're at the airport or walking out of a restaurant.
Anything else?
I think that's it.
Well, hopefully next week we've got
Colin and Kirk back.
Yeah, guys that are actually doing work for a living.
And I am recording 3 Chuck Yates Needs a Job the rest of this week. Paul Clark's actually
interesting.
We're gonna do it online and just pick up where our direct messages were going. Talk about that. And then I've got a young engineer who's coming in Friday morning who wanted me to read his resume and help think through the job stuff. And I said, only if we do it on air. So it's almost going to kind of be a job interview, me prepping him. We'll see how that goes. That'll be fun. And then who else is coming? Somebody's coming in. I've got another algae guy that's going to save the world by producing algae because it can convert CO2 into oxygen. So we'll do that Friday afternoon. So I'll have 3 in the
sounds great
in the hopper, and we won't have to do this. All right, good to see you, Mark. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Go subscribe to both BDE and Chuck Yates Needs a Job. You got enough time to watch both weekly. Leave us comments. Reach out on Twitter, Collide, etc.